Hi guys, welcome to Chess University. This is International Master Kostya Kavutskiy. I've been teaching with Chess University for over 2 years now, so I'm really excited to be doing this class. Welcome everyone to the show. This is the kind of free lesson for the month of January for players rated 1750 and up. I just did a lesson for the 2000 plus group. If you guys stuck around for this one as well, you're welcome to do so. I'm sure we're getting a lot of new players that didn't see the previous show in here. So hi everyone that's just joining in. Thank you guys for checking out Chess University. This is a really exciting program to be a part of because it's a very cost-effective method of teaching chess. It's a lot cheaper than weekly private lessons, and for those of you that don't know, the way that Chess University works is it's kind of like an all-inclusive monthly coaching program. So you get live lessons like this where you can tune in with a coach on a specific topic and ask questions. In the 1750 group, you also get recorded lessons on, let's say, core topics. And perhaps even more importantly than the lessons, all of the lessons always come with the PGN of the lesson examples, so you can play through the positions that we look at, as well as homework exercises and even study guides, so that you guys are working on your chess full time. Because at the 1750 level, you guys are already pretty decent chess players. You're already playing complete games. You're not making, so many silly blunders, although I'm sure a lot of you are every once in a while. And you're able to calculate and find nice combinations. And this is kind of the time where if you're really trying to hit 2000, hit expert, to really kind of hunker down and start taking it seriously and putting in a couple of hours a week of real study time if you're trying to improve and make it to that next level. I forgot to do this in the last show, but I'm curious, those of you that are watching in the chat, what are your ratings, whether it's USCF rating or FIDE rating or any other rating system they use? I'm kind of curious as to see who's in the audience. You don't have to be 1750 plus to watch the lesson. It is a free lesson, so you're not going to get booted out if you say 1500. So don't worry about that. In fact, I'd be really happy to see a lot of club players attending this section as well, because it means that you guys are a bit more ambitious and want to challenge yourself. Okay, cool. So we definitely have some players above 1700 and a couple 14, 1500s as well. Awesome, guys. All right, so today's lesson is going to be about calculation, and I want you guys to treat this as kind of a calculation assessment. We're going to be doing a number of different exercises. You guys will first see the position as you do now and try to figure out for yourself. After a couple of minutes, I'll go over the solution, any other variations that we want to look at. And oh, that's right, I forgot to turn the to show the chat, so thank you for reminding me. After you guys get a chance to solve the puzzle, we'll look at the solution, and you'll see that each exercise is actually going to be kind of highlighting different aspects of calculation, different skills they're using, different methods, different techniques. And I would encourage you guys to pay attention to which of these exercises you excel at and which of them you struggle with. So because if you're struggling with a certain kind of problem, for example, finding unique resources or finding in-between moves, something specific, and you become self-aware of that, this is kind of the first step to working on one of your weaknesses, because I know most of you guys at this level can calculate a combination if it's kind of easy and straightforward, but once things get tricky, of course, we all miscalculate and make blunders. So this is really this is tough work to truly work on your calculation. Okay, guys, this first position here is black to play and win, so you're looking for some kind of decisive advantage, and all of these problems, these are going to be more or less forced variations. It's not like you play one move and you have a better position, this is going to require real calculation. And I see someone has already written their solution in the chat. This is great. I want you guys to write kind of the full solution, at least the critical variation. Don't just give me one move, because one move is not really enough. Because you can guess the first move correctly, but if you don't see the full combination, then it doesn't really count for a whole lot. Remember, this is about improving your skill so that you guys can become stronger chess players. So I really want you guys to put in your full effort for the video, or for the class, I should say. Okay, so I see a couple of suggestions for bishop takes e3, and then b takes c4, and rook to b3 check. Very good. So this one is pretty simple. I wanted to start off with kind of an easy one. And I'm going to play through the solution first just using arrows. And the reason I'm doing this is so for those of you guys that didn't get it right or weren't able to, let's say, finish in time, I want you guys to at least visualize the solution, and then we'll play it out on the board. Visualization is something that is really important to work on. In fact, someone was asking about what we covered in the earlier class, the 2000 plus group. We actually did a lesson on deep endgame calculation, calculating long lines and king and pawn endgames and things like that. So like 8 move, 12 move solutions. And I made the class visualize the whole thing, and they actually did a pretty good job. So I'm gonna ask you guys to kind of visualize the same. So bishop takes e3. This is of course a capture, a forcing move. I'll give you guys a little warning. This is kind of the easiest problem of the bunch. They are going to get a lot more challenging than this. And they're not all going to be like just kind of take, win, where you can capture a piece, and then you win. You're going to have to find some quiet moves as well in the rest of these exercises. But here it's not too hard. Bishop takes e3. White has to play queen takes e3. And then black opens up the b file with b takes c4 check. Whether white plays rook takes or b takes c4 is not super important. Black's next move is the key move, rook to b3 check, temporary sacrifice, and this is going to be winning white's queen and winning the game. White can take this rook. The second rook comes into b3, skewering the king and queen. The queen is on e3, and if rook c3 we just take, or if king d2 we're going to take the queen and even deliver a mate, rook b1 and rook takes c1 checkmate. Okay, if you're able to visualize all of that, that is a very, very good sign. That means your visualization is probably really strong of a player of your level. If not, don't worry about it. You can always work on your visualization, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's play through it, because it's always very satisfying to play and actually see the moves on the board. So take. We take with check. This is another forcing move. Now, technically, white's best move here is to not accept and to play a move like king to d2. And black is winning a ton of material here, either by taking here, or even better, is to just take on g2 and take the rook on h1. So b takes c4, white takes on c4. This is kind of the main line. And then rook b3 check. If you don't see this move from before, well, you haven't really solved the full problem, because this is the only way that black can win. Otherwise, black just exchange queens and we go into some equalish endgame. So rook b3 check, it's very, very important to be able to see this move from the starting position, right? That means when you're calculating here and you're trying to visualize, you need to have spotted rook b3 check first. Otherwise, the line doesn't really work. And in a game, maybe you wouldn't want to give up your dark squared bishop so easily unless you were going to be getting something in return. For those of you that are discussing this in the chat, b takes c4 is less accurate, indeed, because of knight takes c4. And now black cannot take on e3, and rook takes b3 doesn't really lead to anything. So this is also an example of choosing an accurate move order. We're going to be talking about move order quite a bit in today's class. Calculating and choosing different move orders for your ideas is one of the most important techniques in calculation, especially at this level. This is when this is when players start becoming really tuning in and finding the accurate move order for all their combinations. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the next puzzle here. And I'll let you know who is to play. And this one is another warm-up, not too hard. This is black to play and win. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to give you guys a minute here of kind of silence so you can calculate in peace and then write in the full solution. Okay, so black to play and win, and I'm going to give you guys a minute here to calculate. All right, guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and write in your answer, though I see a lot of you have come up with the right move, so good job there. And let's take a look at the solution. So clearly, black's pieces have a lot of tactical potential here. And a little bit about the practical side of things. When you're playing a game and you have this active position, you know, you want to be looking for the knockout blow in a lot of these positions, because if you don't finish the game in mate, sometimes things can go wrong. Now g4 here is definitely a good move, and to me it looks very, very strong, but it is not the best move. A lot of you found the mate, and that's good, because with 1 minute it's not a lot of time to calculate. You really have to be looking for, let's say, the most forcing moves, the most forcing lines, and figuring them out. So queen takes h2 here. Brilliant queen sacrifice leading to a mate. King takes h2 is forced, rook h4 check, king to g1, and then again you had to find that key third move, knight to g3. This knight is untouchable due to the pin along this diagonal, and with the rook on h4, next move is rook to h1 checkmate. White has no checks, no counterplay, no way to defend the square, and is getting mated next move. Starting with knight g3 check does not work, because after white takes with fg, queen h2, king takes h2, the problem is this pawn ends up covering h4. So if you thought that, of course, it's just basically miscalculation, and if you kind of missed this line and you didn't see that the pawn can take the rook, this means you should be working on your visualization, or at least slowing down a bit and trying to visualize things a little bit clearer move by move. What kind of problem is it? It's a pretty simple mate problem. If you had no idea this was coming, it means you need to work on some puzzles with mating nets, mating patterns, because this is a very common mating pattern that should kind of come up for you when seeing this position. One of the most important things of calculation and finding combinations is, of course, the pattern recognition. So if you saw this position and just had no idea what to look for, I think the two most natural moves are knight g3 check or queen takes h2. If you just had no idea, it means that you maybe need to work on your pattern recognition a little bit more, doing some of these fundamental mating puzzles, mate in twos, mate in threes, and so on. And even for those of you that are doing well so far, solving mate in two puzzles on a regular basis is actually a great thing for your chess. Whenever I have a tournament, I'll warm up the day of and just solve like 50 puzzles made in two, where I just try to solve it like within 3 seconds. And the more you do that, of course, the better your calculation becomes, because a lot of times it's not about finding a mate in 2 or a mate in 3 quickly. It's not that you have to find it with just like a minute left on your clock. It's more about being able to find it in your calculations, because when you're making decisions and you're trying to figure out where to put your pieces to attack, then you need to be kind of anticipating and visualizing these mating ideas ahead of time. So if you're solving these problems all the time, of course, you're going to do much better at that. Okay, and now we can play through the solution. Very satisfying. The knight comes to g3. White is completely paralyzed, and rook h1 check is coming next. By the way, guys, I think I might have mentioned in the show, but if you ever have any questions, of course, you can let me know in the chat. I'm following you very closely. This is from a real game. This is actually Reshevsky, the famous American player, playing white. So he was on the wrong side against Ivanovic. And this is from Skopje, 1976. So really nice idea here. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. And I actually want to pick and choose which one I want to do. Okay, we're going to do this one. This next problem is white to play and win. And so again, you're looking for a forced win leading to a decisive advantage. This one's a little bit trickier because you have some options. And it's not so, checkmate. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit more time here, maybe 2 minutes. I'll kind of play by ear based on what I see going on in the chat. I'm also going to switch scenes here so that if you don't want to see the chat, if you don't want to be influenced by anyone else's answers, you can make it full screen, and then you don't have to see what other people are saying, and then you can kind of try and work it out on your own. Okay, guys, white to play and win, 2 minutes. Okay, guys, I'm seeing a lot of the same solutions, but this one might not be as easy as you guys are making it out to be. In fact, I'm not sure I've even seen the right solution yet. I have not. So let's think about the answer that you guys are giving in the chat is knight f5, a lot of knight f5s, which of course I understand. It's absolutely very, very natural move. But let's see. So knight f5, queen e6, knight takes g7, king takes g7, and then we take on f6. Black gives up the queen, bishop takes, king takes. Now we won the queen, but we have given up a lot of material there, right? So how much material have we given up? We've given up 2 minor pieces and the rook for queen and 2 pawns. And in the resulting position, if we're visualizing, black will have 2 rooks and 2 bishops against queen and rook. So materially speaking, black is doing fine, and if white doesn't get the attack going in that position, the 2 bishops are just kind of taking over. So let's look at this line, because this was a nice problem, of course, because there are so many tempting continuations. So knight f5, queen e6, take, take, take. I think taking with the rook, let's say, take, take, take. So this is kind of the critical position. Now, if white had something concrete here, some kind of way to win the game, then this would be good for white. But unfortunately for white, that's not there. The king is actually ready to just run to the queen side. And the evaluation is that black is actually kind of okay. The 2 bishops are perched nicely on gonna be on the 6th rank. The 2 rooks are connected and coordinated. White has some pawns, but it's gonna be hard to push these pawns without making some new weaknesses. So this is a very tempting idea, but this is not the right solution. Yeah, there's queen g5 check. Thank you for pointing that out. But black plays bishop g6. And this isn't working for white either. Or if you play rook takes f6 and then play queen g5, it's a nice move, but unfortunately, black still has bishop g6. And we kind of just get the same position. Takes, takes. We don't have e5. Black has rook e5 coming. Black is kind of okay here. Yeah, if you play a move like rook to f1, this is a nice idea, but this will definitely backfire. Queen takes c3, and white is going to get back rank mated. So this line looks tempting, and after the lesson, actually, you guys will be able to see the PGN file if you'd like, and play through all of the examples on your own. So if you're not convinced by some of my explanations, you can analyze for yourself and hopefully find something interesting, because I haven't explored all the possibilities in these problems. A lot of times students come up with some kind of variation that I didn't consider before, and ends up being really interesting. Actually, that happened in the previous class. There was one really cool line in this, well, very complicated endgame with multiple passed pawns. So knight f5 is so natural, but doesn't lead to the win. White does have a very natural move, rook af1, that I saw a lot of you were suggesting. And this is a perfectly decent move. You're strengthening your pressure against the f6 pawn. But of course, given the chance, you do want to find the finish when you can. Here, black probably plays bishop to g6, and black is going to be solid here. The f6 pawn has enough protection. Okay, so now we're going to look at the sacrifices on f6, because this is all we have left, right? So which one is it? Bishop takes f6 or rook takes f6? I'm going to give you guys another chance here to try and figure it out. Do we take with the rook, or do we take with the bishop? I think someone has already written the right solution in the chat, but we're just going to go through it now. Rook takes f6 is correct. The problem with bishop takes f6 is that after knight f5, queen e6, and this queen h6 idea, black can play rook to g8. And after rook to h3, it looks like we're so close to the finish. Bishop g6, and amazingly, black covers everything. But then what's the difference? Well, if we take with the rook, which is a really brilliant idea, then after g takes f6, knight f5, queen e6, and queen h6, now white has double threats of bishop takes f6 and queen to g7 mate. So here black is not only losing the queen, but also getting mated in the end. So a really nice problem. Actually, after rook takes f6, black's best is to not take the rook. Instead, black should play bishop g6 and just kind of keep the game going. But white has, of course, won a very important pawn and has a technically winning position. So this was a nice tactic. Here, of course, it's all about options. And a lot of players struggle when they have too many options. They choose one that looks tempting, but they don't look for, let's say, the best option. Other players, they struggle in the sense that they only see one idea and they don't look for other options. And I think some of you were guilty of doing that for this one, where you're kind of focused on this one idea. It looks very tempting, but you lost your objectivity a little bit because we failed to realize that even in this line, that the rook and the two bishops against the queen was going to be enough against white's queen. All right, guys, we're gonna go on to the next one here, and as you can tell, these are getting more challenging. I really want to test you guys and force you guys to find some strong moves. Okay, our next position here is white to play and win. And I want you guys to give me the full solution here, of course, not just the first move. White to play and win. This one is definitely tough. I'll be impressed if anyone can fully get it and quickly. I'm going to give you guys some extra time here because I really want you guys to take this seriously and work on your calculation. So I'm going to give you 3 full minutes to calculate with no talking, so you can calculate in peace. And I'm also going to switch scenes, so if you don't want to see the chat and see what other people are saying, you can full screen it and avoid that. All right, guys, 3 minutes, white to play and win, full solutions only. Okay, guys, I'm seeing some good suggestions so far. You guys are on the right track, but I haven't seen the correct full solution yet. So I'm going to give you guys more time. If you're calculating this line Queen H5, again, you're on the right track. It's a nice idea. Rook takes D1 check, King H2. You really need to look carefully and see if black has a defense to Queen to F7 followed by mate. Taking the knight just leads to immediate mate. Rook D7 is also leading to mate, as some of you have figured out, because white takes, knight takes, and then white can play either Queen E8 check and then Queen F7 check and give mate, or Queen F7 check, king moves, Queen E8 check, knight has to block, and then Queen takes F8 mate, back rank mate because this knight is covering H7. So Queen H5 takes King H2, Rook D7 leads to mate, Knight D7, black also gets mated there. What can black do to defend? Because black does have a defense after Queen H5, Rook D1, King H2. I think you guys are getting a little bit too excited. I mean, Rook H1 check, maybe, but we're kind of missing something simpler here. Rook F1, exactly. Just covering from F1. So Queen H5, Rook takes D1, King H2, Rook F1. So we don't need any Rook H1, brilliant counter defense, Rook sack. Just Rook F1 and white doesn't have a good follow-up. Black is starting to just take the knight next move. Or play Queen E1 and give mate. So a lot of players, this happens in a real game. They find this brilliant idea. They get too excited about it. And they lose the objectivity. They don't really look for the defense. Because I get it, guys. You want it to work so bad. But no good. Okay, so that's not working for white, but like I mentioned, that is very close. You guys are on the right track. So maybe we can figure out some kind of improvement over that line. And right away, Gis74 says, so Queen F3. So you can tell this is one of my students from the Prodigy program, because they already know kind of how to calculate and how to think correctly. Whenever you have a line that's really close and it's almost working, look for that subtle improvement. Indeed, now you guys are getting it. Queen to F3 is a brilliant move, and this wins on the spot. By the way, guys, this was actually played. This is a brilliant variation. We're going to see the whole thing. This was played in the Waikanze tournament last year. This tournament is going to be coming up in just a couple of days. In the B group between Grandmaster Smirin, Ilya Smirin, and Grandmaster Gawain Jones. So two 2660s knockouts. And this was a really amazing finish. By the way, black's last move was H6. So actually black was okay in this position, you know, trading rooks, or playing some move like Queen to B6. So this H6 move was kind of a blunder, and Smirin brilliantly finds this. I mean, this is hard to find when you know there's a solution, right? But if you don't know that you have anything to find this whole idea, I'm sure a lot of players would play Knight F3 and miss out. So let's see what happens. Queen F3, Rook takes D1, King H2. Black played Knight to D7. So the same line happens after Rook takes D7. Black just does not have a way to defend against the mate. And we're going to see this back rank mate time and time again. So black played Knight D7 instead. queen f7 check, king h8, rook takes d7, and as we can see, this wasn't such an easy problem even if you saw the original idea, because it's not like check, checkmate. I mean, you're sacrificing a full rook here. So let's have you guys visualize and see who's going to be able to find the final little combination. So queen f3, I want you guys to follow along here. Rook takes d1 check, king h2, knight to d7, queen f7 check, king h8, rook takes d7, and here black played rook g8. And now it's white to play and win in that final position. So if you're able to visualize this accurately, you should be able to see the final solution. Queen takes g8 or queen g6. Good job, guys. And this is what I was talking about with the solving the mate in two puzzles earlier. If you've solved, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 of these puzzles in your training, then these simple two-move combinations are a lot easier to find, and you have to find them in your variations when you're calculating. This is the key to becoming a strong player. You can best be sure that Smirin saw the whole thing before he put his queen on f3 and sacrificed his rook. So this is a very important part of calculation. Okay, so rook takes d7. Black cannot take the rook because of the immediate mate, so black played rook to g8. And here white has two ways of getting mate. Queen g6 works. It's just a little bit slower. Because we're threatening mate, and if takes, we have queen h5. But black has some spite checks they can throw in. But of course, after that runs out, white is just completely winning. Queen takes g8 happened in the game. It's just a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner, and just ends the game on the spot. And rook d8. Gawain Jones is a good sport for letting it play out on the board, because it was a very, very nice combination. You don't really see this one in strong GM play all the time. Okay, if you struggle with this one, this is a problem that requires some imaginative, some creative thinking. So it might be a sign that you need to work on some kind of creative, combinational, tactical play, amazing combination, some kind of training with like sacrificial combinations or finding unusual resources. Of course, finding this idea of just quietly moving the king to h2 after giving up a whole rook with check. This is not something that is just easy or comes naturally to most players. This is kind of an acquired skill, this ability to find these unique ideas based on just specific little tactics in the position that we have queen f7 and queen takes g7 threatening in the position. Specifically, the books I would recommend for working on your calculation, I would suggest anything written by Grandmaster Agard. He has written some very, very nice books on calculation. Specifically, his previous series, Excelling at Chess, was a really good series on all aspects of the game. But I'll write it in the chat so you guys know what my recommendation is for improving your calculation. There are other books too. Another classic is a book by Gaprindashvili, which I believe is called Imagination in Chess or something along those lines. This is another good book that players really enjoy, and it comes highly recommended. Although I could be getting the name wrong. Okay, with that, let's go on to our next example. And which one? Okay, I think I want to do this one here. This is going to be a really important exercise for you guys. All right, this is white to play. And first thing I would just kind of point out, quick evaluation of the position. White is doing really well here. Material is equal, but we have the two bishops, and both bishops are particularly strong. The bishop on b3, of course, is putting pressure on f7. This bishop on e3 is putting pressure all over the board. So white definitely has a clear advantage here. And here the player Kavutskiy from 1990 found a very, very nice winning sacrificial combination. Queen g6 1-0. This is a bit of a I think you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself here. White's most natural in the position, I see you guys are already pointing out, bishop takes h6. This is exactly what I want you guys to calculate. But it's more than just about finding the one move, guys. So I'm going to give you some time here. So here's your assignment. Bishop takes h6 is your first move. Black is forced to recapture. No other move is making sense there. And then I want you guys to figure out the winning continuation from there. And I'll give you guys a quick hint. It is difficult. It's not going to be just straightforward, easy win. So for those of you that are already giving me the solution, you guys should probably recheck your calculations, because this is not as simple as take, check, and mate. This is going to be pretty difficult. Okay, hopefully that's clear to everybody. You're calculating bishop takes h6, g takes h6, and I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes here. Because this is going to be a difficult puzzle, and then we'll start going through some of the variations that you guys are suggesting. I'm keeping track of everything that everyone is suggesting, and we'll kind of take a look at it one by one. All right, and I'm going to switch scenes here. So if you'd like to calculate in peace, you can mute the video, open up full screen, and you won't see the chat, and you won't see anyone else's suggestions. All right, guys. I'm seeing a lot of a lot of stuff going on in the chat. It's kind of fun to see a lot of people debating and working together, and that's really cool. Yeah, it's a tough problem, right? So how to proceed here from white? Okay, well, I did see the correct solution from I think a few of you guys. So good job to those of you that found it. I think you kind of know if you found the right idea or not. Okay, so let's take a look. So bishop takes h6. I'm gonna have you guys visualize first. Takes queen g6 check, king h8, queen takes h6 check. If king goes back to g8, rook g3 is game over. That's clear. So of course the key move there is knight to h7, and then how does white follow up from there? If we play rook to g3, I believe black will play rook to g8 and is going to be able to defend there, and white is not having a forced win. We can take a look at that position here so you guys can see it. And if we look at something, or if I don't go over the exact line you wanted, remember you can always analyze these positions later, especially with the engine, and work through the different variations yourself, and it's really beneficial to do that. So rook to g3, rook to g8, and white doesn't have such a great follow-up here. I think black can also play a move like f6 here, or maybe, and cover g7 as well, and white is just not winning here. So unfortunately this is not working, but even though this is the well, this is a really tempting continuation, right? And rook g3 check first, just king to h8, and if white could play some move here like queen h4, this would be very tempting, because then you'd be threatening queen takes h6, and that would be hard for black to defend, or queen f4, something like that. But none of these moves are available, and so white just doesn't have the follow-up here. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. So let's say you were calculating during the game and you saw that this looks really tempting, but it's just not working. So what should you do? Well, a lot of players, a lot of very strong players, will kind of say, okay, bishop takes h6 doesn't look that clear. My position is really good. There's no reason I need to sacrifice and take all this risk. So maybe I'll just play a normal move, rook c1. I'll just say, okay, interesting idea, but I don't want to waste a lot of time calculating something that's not going to work. And a lot of players would take this approach, and I think this is perfectly justifiable, because in chess you have a limited amount of time. And so if you have 30 minutes left, 40 minutes left in a tournament game, or less in a blitz game, you can't devote all your time and then not play a sacrifice. Or if you have a good position and then you go for something dubious, this is also just bad strategy, because you can end up down a piece and lose the game, whereas there's no reason for white to really do that. Okay, alternative. If you're going to be doing the calculation and looking for the win, you also need to improve and look for those second options, those strong resources, where this is a thing I call making it work. Bishop takes h6 is not quite working yet, so we have to look for something to make it work. And this is the key move, rook to d6. Truly a very brilliant resource, so bravo to those of you that wrote in the chat. I saw one guy, I think his username was Kramnik, but he spelled it differently, so I assume it's not the real official Vladimir Kramnik. But I think he was the first that I saw to find this rook d6 move. This is a key resource for white that ends up winning the game with this brilliant attack. So the main idea is that after queen takes d6, this queen is going to be hanging along the 6th rank. So queen g6 check, king h8, queen takes, and now if knight h7, black is losing the queen and losing the game. And if king g8, of course, we have rook to g3 and game over. This is, I would say, a decoy tactic when you're trying to lure a piece to a specific square. And this is a very, very difficult tactic to find, because in this position when you're calculating, rook d6 is not a natural move, because it's not a forcing move. You're not taking anything, you're just moving a piece. If there was a pawn on d6, then rook takes d6 would actually be a lot more obvious, because it's a forcing move and you're already trained to kind of look for these forcing moves ahead of time. But putting your piece on an empty square, this takes some skill. And of course it takes very, very, very strong combinational vision. So for those of you that found this move within the 3 minutes, you guys are, to me, it seems like probably pretty strong in terms of tactics and calculation. For those of you that didn't find it, don't worry about it. This is not an easy move to find, but I did want to kind of close out with some more complicated examples just to show you guys what is the chess that you're kind of working for. Okay, so the rook is not does not have to be taken. Black has other moves here. In the game, knight bd7 was played, which makes sense. King g7 is possible, but rook g3 check, and white will take the knight on f6, and game over. If black did not take the bishop on move 1, the problem is black doesn't have another good move, and white is just going to play either queen g5 or queen g6 next, and this is going to be just a winning attack. Or white might even insist and play bishop takes g7, because here that the h-file is opened up. Okay, if black plays some move like c4, we can take, check, and do something like this, and this is likely leading to mate, although I'm not exactly sure. Maybe rook g8 is holding for black. But okay, we have queen to g5, and this is a losing position for black. Or rook g3 is probably the easiest now that I think about it. and black is just getting mated here. So bishop takes h6, g takes h6, rook d6, knight bd7. Now, it was important for white to see this move and see the continuation here. So after queen g6 check, there's a key difference with the rook on d6, and this is an even finer point of the combination. To me, this next part is what makes things really impressive. King to h8. Oh wow, that's Magnus in the chat. Queen takes h6. Knight h7 was played, and now rook to g3. And here black resigned. We have the same position, with the only difference being the rook on d6, knight on d7. And the point is that after rook to g8, white can take, and he has rook to g6. This is the key idea. Without this last move, actually the attack doesn't succeed for white. It's only this final resource that makes things work out, and white gets the checkmate on g7. So this was a very, very, very nice finish. Black could also play a move like f6. And here we see another difference of the position is that white can use the rook here, rook e6, and the queen has no good squares. If the queen leaves g7, we're just going to have mate. And if queen f7, we have a lot of nice discoveries here. I think... what would be the best move here? I think it would be rook to e8. And we're going to get mate next move. We're threatening to take the queen, queen g7, and so on. Rook c6 also looks very nice, just to take the rook next move. And of course, black's queen is under attack. So rook e8 or rook c6, both are good. And that is how the game would finish. This was played by a player named Avigdor Bukovsky. I believe he was a grandmaster, but I could be wrong, maybe an international master. But obviously a very strong player to have found this combination. All right, guys, we're going to do one more puzzle here. And I want to do this one. So we're going to finish with this one. It's very, very nice and pretty. This is white to play and checkmate in 3 moves. Although it's not really a forced mate, black can avoid it, but basically white to play and win, and the main line is 3 moves long. While you guys are solving this one, I'm going to quickly wrap up the class here because we are going to be ending in a couple of minutes, and briefly go over what the Chess University Prodigy program is all about. I know a lot of you have already taken classes there, so you know how it works. It's basically like this. You get a number of live lessons every month. You also get a series of recorded lessons on the topic. Kairev, the president and CEO, he's going to be posting the link to the syllabus for the 1750 group shortly, and you guys can see what this section is going to be covering this month. This month, since it's the first month of Prodigy Program 2.0, we basically decided to make all the sections about calculation, because calculation is the most fundamental skill for chess players, no matter what level you're at. And so you guys will see a lot of the lesson topics here are specifically about improving your calculation, improving your combinational play, understanding how to choose between different variations, and so on. So as you can see, the link there was posted. You can check out the syllabus. And I hope to see you guys in the classes this month. Of course, this was, quote unquote, this would have been the first class of the month. But we decided to make it free because it's the first of the year, and make it really inclusive for everyone and give you guys a sense of how Chess University works and what it's all about. If you check out the syllabus, you'll see that there's 4 live classes on Sundays at the same time, and then 6 additional hours of core video lessons with PGN files, as well as homework exercises, study guides, reading assignments, and lecture notes, puzzle packets, basically everything you need to really take your chess to the next level. Okay, that was quite a bit of selling, but I do really believe in the program, and I think it's the most cost-effective way to really take your chess seriously, because it's basically the price of 1 private lesson with a GM, or maybe 1.5 lessons. But you're getting so much more chess out of it. Okay, I'm seeing some of you are getting the solution right, and some of you are actually not getting it right. And this is this problem is all about move order. But most of you guys have spotted the main idea, which is nice because it is pretty cute. Oh, and as you can see in the chat, we do have a cheaper version for just $25, where you only attend the live classes. For a lot of players, this is kind of the most important part of the program, just the live classes. So $25 a month, you get 4 hours of live classes. It's pretty great. You don't get any of the homework or the study guide or any of that stuff. But if you're motivated and you come to the live classes and you're dedicated, this is still a great way to go. All right, guys, so how does white win here? Well, white looks like he's really in a kind of a pickle here with the queen and rook just ready to checkmate the king. But it is white to play, and white wins with the very nice move, knight to e7 check. Queen g3 does not work. This is the wrong move order, because after queen takes, knight e7 check, guess what? I don't have to take with the knight. I can also take with the rook, and white is not winning this game. In fact, white is down a lot of pieces here. So it is a fun puzzle, but we do have to end with the accurate calculation. It is much more accurate to start with knight to e7 check. Now if black takes with the rook, we don't get mate, but we do take the queen, and so this is good enough, and queen g3 check is coming next move, so game over. And after knight takes e7, we have the very nice finish, queen g3, queen takes g3, bishop takes f7, mate. And this is actually played by 2 amateur players, so it wasn't like you needed to be some kind of brilliant GM or Russian superstar to find this combination. Of course, these kinds of nice combinations, they pop up all the time in lower level games as well. All right, guys, with that, we're going to wrap up the class here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed it and that you got some instructive value out of it. I really hope to see you in the Chess University Prodigy program. We'll be continuing this section next Sunday at the same time. In addition to me, there are some great coaches, including FIDE Master Dalton Perrine, I believe Arnie as well. Those of you guys know him from Chess University, as well as some other IMs too. And if I don't see you in the Prodigy program, well, I hope you continue to take chess seriously. And like I mentioned in the show, there's tons of great books and resources out there to work on your calculation. And I hope you guys keep working at it. All right, guys, have a good rest of your Sunday, and take care.